In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, my name's Tom DeSillis. I'm the host of this show. Typically I do my announcements and my plugs in the beginning, but I'm going to try and do that at the end now so we get right to our guests. But I will just say this, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you just have to email me at youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com, and that's how you get on the show, and we get to talk about fun Dungeons & Dragons stuff. But yeah, so I'm just going to get right to it. I have a guest today. He actually did send me an email just to prove that it does work.
That's right.
And his name is Chaz Bolon. What's up, Chaz?
Not a whole lot, buddy. I guess I'm the fanboy over here emailing you to
listen.
to be
it's
on,
great.
On the podcast.
Your email warmed my heart, man. It was so nice to just have to, to be honest, this is a new thing. I don't get a ton of listens, but to know that I'm putting out something that people actually really like to listen to. It means a lot. I wanted to, I kind of want to start mixing it up, and I want to ask a strange question instead of just typical. So you're gonna be my guinea pig.
Lay it on me, man.
What type of a learner are you? How do you learn?
Oh man.
For example, when I learned how to do this stuff, I'm not a strong reader, so I watched.
Yeah.
I watched and I did, and I listened. So how did you learn more and become an expert in these games?
Oh man. I think for me it's a combination. So when I first started playing D&D, I just read the PHP cover to cover.
Okay.
and absorbed every single thing I possibly could. And then after that, I want to supplement videos. That's usually videos are the way I go. I YouTube everything, right? How to fix my car and how to play D&D better. And so usually it's visual, but the way those books are written with mechanics and math and all that stuff, I think reading the actual book is what helped me.
That's cool, because like you said, I've talked to people who are I read it cover to cover 3 times. I'm I read the classes and the races, and then the rules I learn and remember, but I retain things really well. So once I watch someone do it and they're just armor class, you meet, you beat, and people are no, I don't think that's, I'm I don't care, and they're have you read it in the book? I'm doesn't matter, I just know that's the rule, and and then I Google it or I look it up and I'm see, I told you. So but I commend people who really were able to read through that book cover to cover and learn it all. Did you start with 5th edition, or how long you been playing for?
I started in 4th edition.
4th edition. Oh, that's the trenches one, huh?
Yeah, man. It was 2008, 2009, I think, is when I started. And there weren't, the streams and all the YouTube videos and the podcasts really around, or at least I didn't know of them. I wasn't embedded in the culture like I am now. So that's why I just read the book. That's really all I had.
Playing 4th edition, I've never played 4th edition. I've only heard.
Yeah.
What did it feel like for you? Because I've heard some people, they were all about it, but I feel the majority, it's maybe an 80-20 or a 70-30.
Yeah, dude, people hate that game, and I don't get it. I guess I'm obviously going to be biased. I think everyone's biased to the system that they start in. There's going to be millions of 5e players that are going to be what's this 6th edition that might be coming out? And hesitant about that. But I loved it. I thought it was super rad. I still I'm very, very fond of 4th edition. I think I understand some of like the people's complaints about it, but I think if you understand like what they were trying to do with fourth edition and what like some of the intent was, then it makes a little bit more sense and is more understandable. But I don't know if people, I mean, I'm a little bit of a nerd, obviously, I guess, since I play a lot of D&D, but
okay.
but I
that's
watched
what this show is for people like us. Yeah.
I really like, especially with fourth edition, because it is so kind of hated. I really liked learning about why people didn't like certain things.
From what I heard, the main reason was the combat, right?
I guess so.
Combat is what slowed it up a lot.
I don't know if it slowed it up. I mean, I don't feel like it was any longer than, I mean, maybe it was a little bit longer than in fifth edition, but that's because fifth edition is so much different than fourth or even third.
Right.
With like advantage versus disadvantage is like such a clean, sleek system versus like, I'm going to give these buffs and these debuffs, and there's all these +4s and -2s and all this different math that you have to do for each attack.
Yeah, that's I gotta be honest. If I started playing any of those systems, I would have been like, this is too much math.
It got brutal.
Yeah, so I get it, and then, like, I guess if you have a high level of thinking, like, and you can troubleshoot like that, like, good for you. And that, yeah. I guess for people like that, it works and it's fun for them to be like to really lay into that heavy math. But like, I don't know, like my wife works in like finance and 401ks, and she was trying to explain to me, yeah. Like, we went on a walk earlier today, and we went around the block. We went like 4 or 5 blocks, and she was trying to explain to me, and my eyes just glazed over. And she's like, "Do you understand?" I was like, "No." And she's like, "I'm just so like, you know." That's why the simple math of 5th edition I like. So you said you started playing back in 2008.
Yeah, 2008 or 2009, I think.
Right, so you're pushing,
is when I started.
What is that, 12, 13 years?
Yeah, something like that, which
crazy
is a little
to
wild.
Say that, right?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
I was in, I was, you know. So did you start off, were you a player, or did you cover to cover and then start DMing, or what was your plan?
Fortunately, I didn't jump in straight into DMing. There's so many people I know that have done that, and it's crazy, just wild to me.
Animals.
Yeah. I had a buddy that I knew like at work, and he said, "Hey, I've got some friends that I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with. Would you like to join? There's a newer edition of the game that came out, and we want to try it out." And the only like experience I had with D&D up until then was my mom, like my entire life growing up, she would make me promise on a regular basis that I would never play D&D.
Really?
Like, oh yeah, she was totally one of those people like in the 80s that was just like, D&D is evil and people are like worshiping the devil and like all that, you know, all that wild stuff.
Oh, Chaz,
from the
80s. my boy, my confidant. This is what I've been wanting to hear. Someone, you're the first one. If you listen to past episodes, I'm like, did anyone ever think you were a Satanist? And they're like, no. It's like, damn it. All right.
Yeah.
So mom's like, she's like that mom from the mom from Waterboy. Like, D&D is the devil.
Yes, dude. Absolutely.
All right. Do tell. Tell me. So you grew up and your mom's telling you this.
Yeah.
How'd you go about it then?
Like my dad would always be like pulling me aside and be like, "Hey, I played D&D like back in the 70s, and it was super cool. I loved
really?
It." Yeah.
Did your mom know?
Like, I don't think so. I don't think she had any idea.
That's amazing.
And he would just be like, he's like, "I know that you told your mom we would never play, and that's fine." He's like, "But it is pretty fun."
That's hilarious.
And so I had this like weird thing where I was like, I was an adult, I was living on my own, like fending for myself, but I was also just like, I spent my whole life promising my mom I would never do this.
Oh my gosh,
like, what do I
amazing.
do? And so, you know, I finally like mustered up the courage to tell my mom, which sounds insane, because he's like, "Mom, I'm playing a board game. I'm playing a tabletop RPG." But it was like this huge deal, and she was you know, kind of upset at first, and then I started talking to her about the game and how it works and like what the intent is, And by that time, you know, I think a lot, you know, obviously a lot of that like crazy D&D hysteria had faded away, and that's when my dad was just like, yeah, you know, I played when I was a kid too, and it was really fun, and there was nothing, you know, there's nothing nefarious about this game. It's literally just a pencil and paper game where you roll dice, and so it was like this weird, like, heart-to-heart crucial conversation with my mom about playing Dungeons and Dragons.
That's amazing. Like, oh man, I wish I could have seen like the look on your mom's face when your dad dropped that ball. Like, it was, I don't know, I feel like you'd be like, you might as well have been like, you've been cheating on me this whole time. Or
I was like just shocked. Like, oh
it
no.
reminded me like the story of like, so just a, you know, my grandmother would always say, like, her back when she was young, her mother always told her, don't ever go to a bowling alley because bad people hang out at bowling alleys. That's where the men drink and smoke cigarettes. And my grandmother, when she like retired in her 60s, started bowling. And my great grandmother, who was like 95, she never told her that she ever stepped foot in a bowling alley. It's just like, it's so silly how like now that was like the bad thing. So it just always... But that's amazing. All right, so did you ever get your mom to play D&D?
No, I never got her to play. I don't think she would enjoy it at all. Like, she's not much of a game player.
Right.
But I did. My dad's played with us a couple of times, nice. And he just loves it. He thinks it's so much fun.
There was one time where like my friends and I were like writing, and this was like, you know, even in, because my dad, I guess, went through that era, but like we were writing a comic book, and we drew a comic book, and my dad found it, and I thought he was upset because we had like some kind of sexual jokes in it, and then he brought something up, and he made like some sort of one very small comment about it being like dark, and it didn't, I didn't realize until many years later, and was like, oh, did he think I was like getting into like Satanism or something? Like, because like that was also the stigma, was like comic books and like D&D and stuff, and like, so it was like that one weird moment. But like, to any people who had those parents, like, I wish, like, the counter argument is be like, look, mom, 9 times out of 10 you're trying to kill the devil. And that's the facts. Like, you could be a cleric and using the power of your holy god to vanquish demons and devils, and then they'd be like, wow, this is a great game.
Yeah, what great morals this game has.
Yeah, don't tell them about the chaotic evil character you can play, but like, you know, if you're gonna spin it in the right way, there's ways to do that. Nice. So what was your first character? So, oh wait, hold on real quick, did you hide your dice? Like, did you keep your dice in your like underneath your underwear in your drawer to like prevent your mom finding it, like it was like condoms or something?
I mean, if I was living at home, I
at the time,
I would have been like hiding this stuff. Yeah, honestly, if I was still living with my parents, I don't think I would have done it. I would have been so scared, dude. I would have been way too scared.
That's amazing. All right, cool. What was so what was your first character when you started playing?
So I played a human barbarian.
Nice.
Named Henrik, and he was just like your super stereotypical dumb, strong barbarian. Yeah. So like I joined in the middle of this campaign that my buddy was running, and we only played for probably like 6 or 8 months, I think. And I joined in, like I just kind of ran into this encounter that they were in the middle of, and I popped off like my daily power to like kill whoever they were fighting, and I crit and just like crushed this guy.
Nice.
Just squished him with my maul, and made these guys think I was just like super badass. Nice. Super awesome. And so it was a pretty like incredible introduction into the game, and it made me feel pretty rad. And I think that moment like solidified for me. I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be playing this for a long time.
You need that like positive experience. One of my buddies who like hadn't played, we like convinced him to play, and my one friend for my birthday did like a meat grinder dungeon, and it was so difficult, and my friend who was playing me the first time like got so messed up, and he was like, I don't know about this game, man. And then like I ran another game for him with and he was playing a human barbarian, and I like I just threw some goblins at him to like chop some heads off and stuff. And then he was like, oh, okay, this is hilarious. I love playing a barbarian. I'm like, yeah. But like, it's important to have that positive experience as far as that goes.
Absolutely. It really solidifies the game for you and like what it can be. Like when that light bulb, I think, kind of goes off for a new player to be like, oh my God, like I can do anything. Or like I can try anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's like, it's like a really cool realization, but also a really terrifying realization of like, there's a lot of pressure to be like, okay, it's on you, man. Like, what do you want to do? The DM gets to lean back and be like, I've prepped all of this stuff, and now, hey, what do you want to do? And it's awesome and exciting and terrifying at the same time.
And I know it's so stereotypical, but I think everyone once in their life needs to play the dumb barbarian. I think that's just like,
oh, dude,
it's just
my
like
jam.
I don't know. One of my past guests that I had play on, it was like I was a bard and I was like, someone had like a weird mask on but they died, and I was like, or they had a skull head on top of their head, and I said, can you take that head off? And he just said, sure, and he just chops the guy's head off, and I was like, that's exactly what you should have done. I'm so happy like that you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, all of my characters that I've made either are intelligence based or have no intelligence. It's like I don't know why. It's like the stat I always dump.
Well, yeah, I mean, int is like statistically the most dumped stat, right?
I like dumping that or charisma.
Get out of here.
That or charisma. Yeah. Charisma's a really fun one to dump. What do you usually dump if you're going to dump something?
It's usually either intelligence or charisma. Those are my two least favorite.
Yeah.
Charisma, I think like having really good charisma is fun for some people, but the cool stuff that comes out of being really shitty at charisma is like,
absolutely
so fun and super cool and way more interesting, I think, sometimes.
We did one. I had a wizard with like a -3 charisma, and our fighter got possessed, and we were fighting him, and because he was possessed, his charisma was so high from the thing possessing him. So we were fighting in front of the barbarian, and he's possessed, and I convinced him, kind of, but I was like, tried to persuade the barbarian that I wasn't possessed, but I rolled so low that the barbarian just knocked us both out and tied us both up, and I was like, God damn it! Like, it was hilarious because I was like, I rolled like a 5, and I was like, so I rolled a 2, and like he's like, I knocked you both out, and I was like, yeah, it's so funny like that.
Yeah, it's like way more interesting.
And it's what's good is like it's also way more fun to try stuff when you dump charisma. Like you dump intelligence, like you're just not gonna find out anything. Like you're gonna roll and you're like, you see nothing, you don't find anything, or you don't understand. Like, okay, but like the charisma is like has a very specific, direct result of what will happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then so when did you how long did you play before you started? Do you DM now?
I do. Cool. Yeah, it's a recent venture for me.
All right.
So I played
for a long
most
time,
of the time. Yeah. So I played in that first campaign, and I played in a few more over like a handful of years, and I stopped playing for a couple of years because I just didn't have anybody to play with, and I thought maybe I was just like, I really want to keep doing this hobby, but I don't know how to even begin. And so it was like 2014, 2015, I took a trip to pick up like a package, like a big freight package in a town a couple hours away. And a buddy of mine went with me, and he's super creative. Like he's a writer, has like interned with like Marvel Comics and all kinds of stuff. And so he's super smart guy. And I started telling him about D&D and how fun it was and what the game could be. And he just got like super excited, went home, bought all the 4th edition books, and created this whole world and story, and we started playing, and he became the DM. He was one of those people, right? That's just like I'm jumping straight in, and he loves DMing. He's played a couple of times, in recent years, and he's just like. He's like, yeah, it's not my thing. He's like, he loves building worlds, and his worlds are just incredible, like super immersive and complex and way beyond anything that I come up with. But so we started playing, and that was like a 4.5-5 year campaign. that we played.
How often did you play?
We played almost every week.
Almost every week. Wow.
Yeah.
So, and that was all him, just completely homebrewed.
Oh yeah, dude. It was crazy. And so I brought back my original character, the one that I had first started playing, because I loved him so much. So I brought Henrik back. Gave him a last name, so he was Henrik Thorndendahl, and made him a Goliath this time instead of a human, just like total min-max, like the perfect barbarian, right? And he just created this massive world and story for us to play in, and he made these artifact weapons for us that would like level up with us, and they would have like challenges, or it was like I had challenges where I had to like defeat an enemy warlord in single combat, and then I had like a prerequisite level, and if I met those prerequisites, then like my weapon would level up would become more powerful.
That's very video game inspired heavy, like when your weapons like level up, like that's really cool.
And they were all customized to like our preferred play styles. And so mine was all just like, you're gonna get stronger and nobody can knock you prone, and you can force somebody to fight only you.
My brain hurts.
It was nuts.
My brain hurts just thinking about all that.
Yeah, so he had them for each of us, and then we played for a couple of years, and I went to him and I was like, dude, I'm kind of tired of being dumb because we didn't have anybody that was really fulfilling the role of kind of being the leader of the group.
Right.
And I was like, I can't be the dumb guy that's the leader of the group. And so like narratively in the universe, he came up with a way for me to slowly start getting smarter like made it part of the story. And so my character got smarter and then kind of became the leader of the group that we were a part of. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was super cool, man. That we played for, like I said, about 4.5, almost 5 years, went from level 1 to level 20 in that time frame. We started in 4th edition, and then I think after like a year hopped over to 5th edition.
Okay, so you
and then continued from there. Yeah, which was a crazy transition to make from going from all the powers and like the mechanics in 4th edition are like super gamist, which I think some of the things people don't like, right? Like they refer to they talk about squares and spaces versus like 5 feet, 10 feet. It's just like you can move 5 squares, 10 squares, and stuff like that. And so it was super weird to transition to a more narrative type of vocabulary of like you run 10 feet or you can jump 5 feet.
Well, it also, so the one thing I can say is like, well, obviously when 4th edition was made, no one saw COVID-19 happening, but like if that happened, like part of the reason why I was born in the virtual world of D&D, like pretty much, and like so because like it would be so much more difficult to be like they're 10 squares in front of you, but like what the hell does that mean? What do you mean they're 10 squares in front of me? So it's easier now, and it does make sense because you don't need, and some people even playing in person don't only bring out the maps for like very specific scenarios, but it's way easier to be like, they're 60 feet away. Okay, I can move 30 feet. I can move halfway, or I can use my action and go all the way up. And it just kind of, it definitely, like you said, more of a narrative, like it's easier to describe the situation.
Yeah, it's because 4th edition was supposed to come out with like a digital tabletop. Like they were trying to get ahead of the digital world and people playing online. And so it was supposed to be like a licensed Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons virtual tabletop, kind of like Roll20 or any of those virtual tabletops. And something happened within the development team, and I think I'm sure money was involved, right? And they totally cut that, and so it was like you got half of the game that was supposed to come out that was like really gamist because it was supposed to come out with this virtual tabletop, and I think, like I said, I think that's part of what made people really dislike it, and because there's that missing piece, like it's missing part of the game, unfortunately. But the powers were rad. Like as a barbarian, we switched over at like level 6, and like I was like a superhero already at level 6. My athletics was like a plus 15 at level 6, and you had like daily powers where I was rolling like 6d6 on some of my daily powers, and just wild stuff.
That's awesome.
Because, and I feel like I'm talking about mechanics a lot because I think they're fun, but
I really like the mechanics.
Like fourth edition tried really hard to address the issue of what is it, like linear fighters and quadratic wizards. Is that, I think that's how they refer to that, where like spellcasters just get so powerful later in the game, and fighters and melee characters have kind of a disadvantage when you go later game. And there's some math and statistics you can say where like a fighter's going to hit more often than a spell, but either way, when your only move is to swing your sword and or swing your axe, it can get kind of boring for people. And so I think that's something that 4th edition probably did the most successfully out of any edition, is like everybody's got powers, and everybody has different sets of these powers. So everyone has some daily powers, some encounter powers, and then some at-will powers. And then dailies are done, you can do them once a day. Encounter powers can be done once per encounter, and then at will can be done as much as you want.
I feel like there's a little bit
that leveled the playing field kind of across the board for everybody.
I feel like there's a little bit of that in 5th edition, and
they took the good bits. I don't know. Bits, I
mean, it probably doesn't compare, but like if you look closely, there are ways to build a character that's very broken in
for sure.
I've realized things and I'm like, oh my god, light bulb, and then built a character and brought it. We do a lot of like short, like on my group, we just play every Monday as people drop in and out. So like I really haven't played that high levels, but like I've come in with characters that were like really stupid builds. We're just like, this is not you're supposed to, like, I'm talking, dealing 10d6 at level 5, like level 6 or whatever, like, just doing cool stuff, and it's there, and it may not be like written for you, but there are ways. But I am interested in
some of that work, right?
I am interested, like a lot of people I know play like Pathfinder. Have you ever played other systems other than D&D?
I've read some Pathfinder. I've played another system with Matt Hogan, like a Chronicles of Darkness is the system, and it's only D10s, and I think if you roll over, you roll your D10. I think if you roll over like a 7 or an 8, it's considered a success, and depending on how good you are at something, dictates how many D10s you have. So it's like how many chances you have to succeed.
Okay.
And so it's a really interesting system, but it's hyper realistic. So like you can, there's like skills to drive, and you can screw up at driving, and
so you're a person.
Yeah, you're just like a regular dude.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I'm definitely interested like in playing some systems like that. I think I like playing. I'm already a human. I can already mess up, so I'm like, it's cool to be able to be something that I'm not. But I definitely respect it a lot.
Yeah, they're fun. They're really fun one-shots. Like every once in a while, I think they're super fun, because it's also like some horror aspects and stuff like that, which is a
like
good
Call
time.
of Cthulhu kind of stuff.
And horror, I feel like, works way better when you're not like a superhero. You're like, I'm not scared of this mind flayer. Like, I'm just gonna chop it in half with my giant sword.
I mean, sometimes it is, depending on like if you do it a year ago we did a Halloween one shot. And my friend and I picked like a regular, we were both like ex-soldiers. I was like a barbarian and he was a fighter. And we went into a haunted house with 2 clerics. So the clerics were like, it was like ghosts and zombies and zombie beholders, and just, So the clerics were like, "Oh, we know what to do," and the fighter and my barbarian were like, "What the hell is going on right now?" We were like, "This is awful." we were like just completely, and also like we didn't even have like magical weapons, so we were doing like next to no damage. And we were like, "This is awful. What's going on?" And I was getting obliterated left and right. Like walked in the first room, first encounter, short rest. Second encounter, short rest, and I was like, we were just depleted. But the clerics were like, "What's wrong with you, cowards?" So like, I don't know, magic, but horror is fun. Like, I do enjoy the horror aspect. I like themed ones. Themed ones are always fun.
Yeah.
So what are you playing now? What are you are you DMing right now, or are you playing in a game?
Yeah. I DM right now. No, I do a couple of one shots every once in a while with Matt with that the Chronicles of Darkness system. But yeah, I started DMing like 8 months ago, I think.
All right.
I have for years talked to my wife about playing, because I've wanted her to get involved, and it was tough when our kids were younger, and they were a lot harder to take care of. And so now that it's easier to get grandma or grandpa to come over and watch the kids, she was finally like, "Hey, let's start."
Give it a shot.
And
nice.
and so I bought Monster Manual, I bought the Dungeon Master's Guide, and of course read the Dungeon Master's Guide cover to cover. And watched tons of videos. There's a YouTube series that Matthew Colville has. It's like 130 videos. It's called Running the Game series, and nice. I've watched that like twice, trying to not suck at this job.
Listen,
of running a game. And
I mean, I understand. Like I'm with you. Watching, like listening to campaigns and like people play, it really like it made me learn, and that's how I always learn. But like it really, I think that definitely is a very useful tool that people didn't have when these games were first, like you had to read it. You had to. There was no other
absolutely
option. Yeah, there was no Google. Now most you can build a character and not buy a single book if you can just Google. There's so many resources.
It's almost unlimited. It's like overwhelming. There's so much out there now. And
nice. So are you doing like a homebrew, or are you running a module?
Yeah, I went homebrew, which was kind of silly to do at first. I mean, it's fun. I've had a ton of fun doing it, but it's a lot to bite off as a new DM. But it's been super fun. Getting to run my homebrew. I've got my wife and a couple of really good friends, and some of the guys that played in that previous that 5-year campaign have jumped in to play, and it's been super fun.
What's the theme? The main, obviously you don't want to give away too much, because if your players listen to this, but like what's your world like?
So it takes place like 1,000 years after this massive war, and the gods are actually kind of like cut off from the world, and so they're behind like this barrier where they still have like power and influence, but they can't actually like walk the earth anymore. And so they cut off like powerful beings from being able to basically plane shift between their home worlds and the material plane. And so it's 1,000 years after this war where Orcus somehow figured out how to get like across that barrier, and there was a big war, and this magical power called the Light was awoken and destroyed him and destroyed his armies, and now it's 1,000 years later, and it seems like that's happening again, that evil is kind of reawakening, and that there are people trying to bring Orcus or some other powerful entity kind of through that veil. And so my players are kind of working through the world, collecting these artifacts. So I totally stole the artifact weapons that level up with you thing from my buddy. And so each of them has their own artifact that levels up with them as they accomplish different things, and gives them cool powers that kind of align with the way they like to play their characters. And I steal everything I possibly can. It's totally the way to do it. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's every idea is kind of hashed and rehashed, and there's there's no shame in it. You're not publishing it. You're not stealing someone's ideas and making money off of it. You're using it for your small group, and that's kind of what the game's about. I think there's so many great ideas that people can share. I think that's the whole part.
Oh yeah, so. TikTok has been like the best.
That's crazy. Yeah, I post the clips on TikTok. They get a few watches, but like I watch a lot of the D&D TikToks. Are very, very thorough. Yeah.
Oh dude, yeah. I have like save as many videos as I can that I like, and I put them in a special folder in my phone so I can go back and rewatch and like write down the cool ideas and stuff, and then I just implement them in my game. It's super fun. I watch movies, and if there's a cool thing that happens in a movie, I'm like, I'm gonna steal that. I want to figure out a way to put that in the game, and it's super fun. I think that's what I loved about that video series that Matthew Colville does, because he's been playing since like the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and he talks about like his transition from like trying to play so tight to the rules and follow every single rule, and like in 3rd edition 3.5, which was like a super robust system. Right. But was really cumbersome. There was a rule for everything.
Right.
And his transition to just being like, just do whatever you want. Like, if everyone's having fun, who cares? Like, steal everything.
Yeah.
Make it fun. Like, who cares? Like, whatever you're doing behind your DM screen, your job is to make it fun.
Yeah. No, I think that's super important. No one wants yeah. I'm sure there's some situations where like, that's crazy. You can't. Or you can try, but whatever. Like, you can try. Is I guess that's where it comes into play. And obviously, if you're like, this is impossible, it's a 30 DC or whatever. But no, that's awesome though. I think that like I said, I'm gonna have to check out some of those videos. I'm gonna steal that from you, I guess.
Do it.
So as customary, you had to be there, content. I want to hear, what are your favorite, where were your favorite stories? I mean, I know, so you talked about Henrik a lot.
Yes.
But I want to either in your short time DMing or your very, very long time playing. What are some you had to be there moments?
So playing, I think two of my favorite stories are fairly early on in the game, when we were just like being dumb, doing silly stuff. Like, we hadn't really set into the story or anything like that. We were kind of like in the prologue almost, right? Like, we met in as a group. We were being paid to go kill some orcs that were in this fort, and so on our way to the fort, we got attacked by some orcs. We killed all of them but one, and we kept him alive and tied him up so we could get intel on the fort to learn about it. And so his name was Ugg. And so we get to the fort. He gives us all the intel that we need. And so my character, Henrik, was chaotic good. And being that he was kind of dumb, he would do bad things because he thought it was good. And so, like, if you were bad, if he thought you were a bad guy, he didn't care about you. He didn't care what happened to you. He was going to smash you and kill you, and felt zero remorse for it.
Okay.
And so we got all the information that we needed out of this guy. And I was like, okay, like, Henrik just smashes his skull in. And And I didn't know that the DM had thought like we would have this guy with us for a while and had like given him stats and like beefed him up a little bit. So I thought I was just going to kill him in one hit, right? So I hit him and he just starts screaming. And I have to like keep hitting this guy to bash his head in. He finally dies. The whole fort is like alerted to our presence. And so my guy, they all run off and start fighting. And I'm like, part of the reason I wanted to kill this guy was because his name was Ugg, and I wanted to skin his feet and make boots so I could have Ugg boots. So I thought there was a funny joke to have Ugg boots because his name was Ugg. And so I skin his feet, and we fight everybody in the fort and kill them all. And then the big hook for the big bad guy was inside the fort. And the bad guy gets away, and that's who we start chasing, and that's how we started the whole big plot and story. But that's how we got our fort, because we were like, hey, if we killed everybody, can we have this?
Yeah, that's the best part of taking down like a castle. You're like, nice castle. No one was living here before this? Oh.
Yeah, he was really caught off guard. So he's like, I guess so. So we had our fort, called it Fort Kick-Ass.
Nice.
And what he ended up doing is the boots, when I would wear them, they were magic. And I had like a boots? Yeah, he made a magic. So I made them into boots, and they became a magic item. And they would make me. I had like super bad charisma rolls because of it, but I could substitute strength for intimidation rolls. But I also always like really faintly in the back of my head could always hear the screams of Ugg as I was murdering him. And so he played the long game with Ugg too, where he turned him into a Revenant.
Oh no!
And he kept coming after us. So we would fight him and kill him, and then it would be 6 months later in real time, and he would pop back up again in a new body. Until
my feet back, bro.
yeah. So like he hated me, right? Because I had unjustly murdered him because there was no honor in it, right? And so eventually, after like the third time of fighting him, and he would always wreck us so super hard. We barely beat him every time. He had inhabited the body of like a warlord and had this huge army that was invading a city, and in that city was something we needed. And so we fought in the opposing army to fight against them, and I was the only one that could see Ugg inside the body of this person. Right? I was the only one that could see.
You were the only one that can identify. Like, that's not this person, that's Ugg.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had like the coolest and greatest moments of my D&D career was the interaction with Ugg, trying to end the Revenant, because the only way you can finish a Revenant is they either have to finish their task within a year or they're gone. I think you can try and banish them, but otherwise I think only a wish spell can like end a Revenant, which we were nowhere near high enough level to do a wish spell. And so I was like, I think Henrik has learned, like after seeing how much pain he caused Ugg, that like he did something wrong. And like the character had kind of grown from there, and had some more hesitations about killing bad guys and stuff up until then. And so I had, Henrik just walked up and like laid his weapon down and like apologized and said, I'm sorry, like if you need to kill me, you can. And was just like, I was ready to let Henrik die because I was trying to save everybody from being attacked by this Revenant. And so he starts just like whacking me with his sword and just like pummeling, my character. And he just keeps apologizing and saying, I'm so sorry. And I kept doing these charisma checks, which his charisma was terrible.
Right. Okay. So this is it. This is the charisma.
And so I thought like, well, Henrik's going to die here. And I finally roll like a really good roll. And so the Revenant, he ends up, he drops his weapon and, basically asks like, do you really mean this? And so then Henrik gets up and like gives the Revenant a big hug and, and starts crying and says, I'm so sorry. And, Ugg's body just like melts away and he's gone. And the curse on my boots was lifted and like the powers of the boots changed from like the curse of Ugg to the blessing of Ugg, and I had like he made me more lucky. So you got to keep the boots? Yeah, he gave me healing and stuff, and like basically became like a part of my character Henrik, and it was just like one of those story. Like super like genuine emotional moments that like I never would have thought that would happen to me like in a tabletop game, because we're always just like goofy and doing silly stuff. Yeah. But it was just like, it was so cool. Like I was crying at the table because I was so emotionally invested in this situation. And again, it was just one of those moments where I was like, I can never stop playing this game because I could never have a response like this playing any other kind of game.
It's the best game it's the best game. It really is. I totally can't. I thirst for those moments, like those kind of real, like those real moments, like when you feel in your heart and then like you, like, most people that play this game aren't actors, but then there are these moments where we feel like an actor. Like that's what a real actor does, and like that's kind of cool. And like you really you have that connection with the characters, and it's something like it takes a while to really understand that you can do that, unless you're like some people can, because like if you were an actor or are good at stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But like it definitely, like when something happens like that and you feel it in your character, it really does hit home, and you're like, oh, this is what this game's all about. And like I even said, and when I started playing, I was like, skip all this storyline stuff, I just want to kill things. And now I'm like, well, all right, skip all this fighting, I gotta talk to that cute goblin over there. And like, it's like, it's just your mentality sometimes can change based on the character too. But oh man, I really love that story.
It was rad. Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
I would like, we're kind of getting a little towards the end, but I kind of wouldn't mind just one. If you have one more quick story, I would love to hear one more story because of all your experience.
Yeah. So this happened as a DM. It was something I stole from TikTok, and I wanted to kind of end.
Just with the TikTok thing, my DM has taken like characters that people have made from TikTok, and they're like apothecaries and put them in. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those.
Yes.
Like, Rosie's Apothecary? Have you ever seen that TikTok? Yeah. So my half-orc bard, she put Rosie's character in the game, and I wasn't on TikTok, and my half-orc bard hit on her, realized how dangerous she was, because she's like, the big secret is like, she's like a necromancer. Yes. And I broke up with her, and now she's chasing us, and I bought a necklace of non-detection to hide from this character that some person on TikTok that is way more known than me knows. But anyway, that's my quick, like, hilarious TikTok story that I'm running from this character this girl made up on TikTok. She's trying to kill me. Anyway. So what was your idea that you stole from TikTok?
So it was, I wanted like a really cool, dramatic way to end what I considered kind of the end of the first chapter of our story.
All right, cool.
So my players had to go fight. They're trying to free this kingdom, the Golden Kingdom, from the leader, and he wasn't the king; he's like the steward of the kingdom. And they fight their way through the castle, and they finally make it to the big bad guy, and they beat him. But when they beat him, he's like a human. All the skin falls away, and out pops like this big horned devil, and he retreats through a rift. And so they follow him through this rift to his throne world, which is like adjacent to hell. So it's not actual hell, but it's kind of like an aspect of it. And they fight him and they beat him. It's like this super epic battle. Almost everybody went down at least one time in the fight, and was able to get back up with healing and stuff. And it was super fun and super epic. And so everyone barely makes it out of the throne world because it starts to collapse after they kill the devil. And when they get out, they look out over the landscape that you can see. They're at the very top of this castle, the highest tower in the castle, and they can see this town called Midstar that's like 25 miles away or something. And there are these huge storm clouds brewing over, and like a hologram of the big bad guy appears, and he's like, good job defeating one of my generals. And he's like, while you were doing that, like, I was preparing something else. And he raises up his hand, and then a meteor storm rains down on Midstar and just destroys it. And like that's where the campaign started. And there's a bunch of people they knew there. One guy, like, his parents lived there, and I just like decimated the whole town. And they had to watch, as that happened. And it was just like, it was one of those moments for me that I was just like, I hope this goes off how I imagine, in my head. And it was just like flawless for me, like the reaction, like the gasps from everybody, and the realization, I think, for some of our new players, like, oh my God, like, stuff can get pretty real.
You need to beat that at one point in time. You see what that psycho did? Yeah, you're
we gotta
that's
fight
like
this guy.
That's like such a like put your, just like slapped it down on the table, kind of like, you want to play this game? This is gonna be a story. This is gonna be a journey. Like, you just let them know, like, right out the gate, like, we're doing this. You want to play this game? Like, that's like such a like balls to the wall way to start a campaign, and I love it because it's just like, it sets so much, like, such a huge expectation, instead of like, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like you put is that like kind of like almost the end boss, like, right up in the beginning, kind of.
So they knew that they were gonna have to fight this guy, but they didn't know like how powerful he was or anything like that. But the saving the Golden Kingdom was the more pressing thing right now. And so I was like, I want them to really see, like, this is how powerful you have to get if you want to beat this guy. He just leveled the whole city. Mission
accomplished, sir.
Yeah, it was rad.
Chaz, this was a lot of fun. You're a great guest.
Super fun.
You're a great guy. I really appreciate the time. Let me do some announcements, and then we'll get you out of here. So,
sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the show. The music for my intro is created by Michael James McGarry. He is a really great musician. You can find him on SoundCloud or Instagram at It's MJ Made. And my intro, my logo, was created by Nicole Summers for the Reliably Chaotic podcast. And if you want to be a guest on the show, if you listen to support either the live stream or wherever you get your podcasts, just shoot me an email at youhadtobethere@gmail.com, and that's DND with the 3 letters. Chaz knew that. Chaz figured it out. Some people are like, with the ampersand or whatever. No, just DND. You had to be there. DND podcast at gmail.com. You can follow me at It's Time to Sell Us Comedy for stand-up comedy dates. I got a few coming up in November, and that should do it. Thank you for listening. This has been You Had to Be There with Chaz Bolon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.